Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. Thank you so much for watching. After a long and eventful offseason, we are back to baseball action, and the 2026 season is about to start. And the Royals are projected to have a fantastic regular season. We made a lot of changes this offseason, as I noted. Go over some of the key ones here. Probably the most controversial, bringing in Jung Hoo Lee as a free agent. He's coming over from the Korean Baseball League, where he's won 2 consecutive batting titles, led the league in WAR 2 of the last 3 seasons. Profiles as a good contact hitter, not going to strike out much, decent base runner. Corner outfield, can play center field for us in a pinch. The big question is how much he's actually going to hit. If he can bat over 300 in the major leagues, I think he will be a pretty useful player for us. If he struggles over here, then it's going to be money that was poorly spent. And we really revamped our outfield significantly. Also brought along Sal Frelick in a trade. Traded away Juan Yepez for Frelick, who... very good speed, good base runner. Looks like he can be a plus hitter, although he doesn't have a ton of home run power, and can also play all 3 outfield spots, although he's really a left fielder through and through. And then Stephen Paulini, another young player who we think can hopefully be an above average hitter, play both of the corner outfield spots for us. Those 2 joint holdovers, Kyle Lewis and then Peyton Williams. Brooks Lee brought over as a utility infielder. Think that he can obviously play second and short reasonably well, has a acceptable bat for someone coming off the bench, so happy to have him on the roster also. He is another one of our new additions. And then other than that, the big new additions are in the pitching staff. Specifically in the starting rotation, we signed Zach Wheeler to a 1-year free agent contract, so hopefully he can perform as well or even better than Clayton Kershaw did for us last season. He is a fragile injury proneness, so we've already put a pitch limit on him. Hope we can keep him healthy throughout the season and expect him to be a big contributor come playoff time. And then we also traded for Caleb Lagerwell, who was a prospect in our system, traded away a couple seasons ago to pick up Trevor Rogers. Tried to rectify that wrong by trading the number 30 and the number 36 prospect in baseball to bring Lagerwell back to the Royals. And we have subsequently signed him to a contract extension. We bought out all 4 of his arbitration years and potentially 3 years of free agency if he opts into the final year of his contract. So those were the big moves that we've made. Feel like we bolstered both our offense in the outfield as well as our starting rotation. And we are looking forward to kicking the action off and seeing if we can play as well on the computer screen as the Royals are expected to. Although the Royals are a relatively small market team, we're all in on this season. Certainly bringing on a player like Wheeler indicates that. We do have money to bring on players when we get closer to the trade deadline. Don't really have any money for extensions right now, though, so it is a win now season for us. You can see Wheeler's contract will be coming off next year. Real pleased with the Trevor Rogers and Bobby Witt Jr. contracts. The Jung Hoo Lee contract, we'll see how that works out over time. We're going to have a decision to make on Nico Horner next year. Kyle Lewis's potential to opt out of his contract. So the team could look very different next year than it looks this season. But coming off of a 96-win year, we are totally focused on trying to not just get back to the playoffs this season, but hopefully going on a long playoff run. And in the back of our minds, is this the window for the Royals to win a title? Is certainly a thought that we have. And if there's ever going to be a year when we can do it, it feels like this is the year when we're going to have to try to do so, since the team, as always, will look different next season. So as the season gets ready to begin, management has fairly low expectations for us, just wanting us to play better than 500 ball. We've done that 3 years in a row now, and as I mentioned, are very focused on trying to win it all this season. They do have a goal for us to get into the World Series by next year. So obviously would be great to not just have a winning year this year, but get back into the playoffs and then hopefully make a long playoff run to keep ownership happy with us. In just 3 games into the season, we're off to a slow 1-2 start, but Nicky Lopez is back and fully healthy, so we are going to bring him up. Initial thought is to send Melvin Moreno, who had been filling in for him, but is not much of a hitter, down to AAA, and that is what we will do, at least initially. However, I do note that Nico Horner is banged up. We're waiting to hear about an injury diagnosis from him, so if that ends up being a serious injury, Melvin Moreno may be right back on the major league roster very quickly. But for the time being, it's good to have Nicky Lopez back playing shortstop for us, as he's got a bigger bat than Moreno and is also an outstanding defensive shortstop. And Nico Horner is going to be out for a while, hamstring strain, 3 to 4 weeks. Off to a real nice start. I mean, granted, he only had 3 at-bats, but 2 hits, including a double and a run driven in those 3 at-bats, as well as a walk. So we will miss his glove, as he has been a perennial Gold Glove Award winner ever since he came over and joined the Royals. Hopefully he will be back in the not-so-distant future by the end of April. Until then, need to make a decision as to whether Moreno comes right back up, like I had mentioned, or we consider bringing up an Alexander Vargas, Ahmed Rosario, one of the other kind of players that we picked up to give us a little more depth in the organization this past offseason. And we are actually going to bring up Alexander Vargas rather than Moreno. We've had Moreno in the team for several years. We kind of know what he is. No hit, great glove. Alexander Vargas we picked up on waivers last Halloween from the Padres. Looks like he may have potentially a better major league bat. He's only gotten 41 days in the majors so far. Not quite as good defensively, but still pretty versatile. Can play all of the key infield positions. So we are going to bring Vargas up and see what Byron Nichols wants the lineup to look like, and Brooks Lee is going to be getting the run at second base. He was another one of our acquisitions from last offseason, and will be getting a little bit of playing time with the starting 9 with Nico Horner on the IL over the next several weeks. And with the Royals struggling with a 1-4 start, Jung-Hoo Lee, our controversial signing, is day-to-day with a strained back for about a week. You can see it influences his running, his throwing, and his hitting. He's not off to a great start, but obviously an extremely small sample size. Just 5 hits and 21 at-bats, although 3 of them are doubles, but hitting only .238, but clearly way too early to declare a loss or a win as far as that. But given that it impacts all aspects of the game, we're going to just throw him on the IL for 10 days, just in the interest of being completely cautious with everything, and that will give us an opportunity to give Tyler Gentry, who has only been up for a little while, a little action with the Major League club. Well, as Jung-Hoo Lee is on the IL for the second time, and now he's suffered a setback, so he had hit slightly better after those first 5 games, but 86 at-bats, hitting .267 with an 86 OPS plus, 85 WRC plus, so clearly not what we were hoping for from him so far, but he's been banged up a lot, so I don't know if it's just that he may be a more injury-prone player than we had thought when we signed him, or just bad luck. Hopefully it's just bad luck, and we'll be able to get him back into the lineup in the not-so-distant future, and hopefully we'll also see him hitting a little better. You can see over the course of his last 5 years in Korea, hit 357, 361, 324, 355, and 343. So the hope is that that certainly translates into a much higher average than a 267 batting average here over in MLB. And just by way of record, our Royals are in first place in the AL Central, not having a dominant season, 22-16, up by 2 games on the Guardians. And the Guardians are in the wild card hunt. They would be tied for the final spot with the Orioles right now. So hopefully we can start playing a little bit better. Just looking at some of the key players, Bobby Witt Jr. and Sal Frelick are 1 and 2 in the league in stolen bases. Mentioned in our last episode that going to be a little more aggressive on the base paths with some of those top really fast players that we have on our team. Austin Roberts, 12 saves, is second in the American League right now. So Royals are playing fine, doing what we need to do, but would certainly prefer that winning percentage be closer to 600 than it is to 579 right now. So start stringing together hopefully a few series victories and open up a little space on the Guardians here in the AL Central. If we can do that over the next month or so, we'll be feeling a lot better about the direction this season is taking. And the Royals are playing well, 44-30 record, first place in the American League Central, up by a game and a half on Cleveland, although they have been surging recently, making up some ground on us. Just had the first major injury to our starting rotation. It is our number 5 starter, Ricky Vanasco, the youngster who really having a nice year for us. 6-4 record with a 2.42 ERA in 63 1/3 innings. Struck out 68. The potential concern with him is his control, and he had walked 33 in 63 1/3, but with only 41 hits allowed. Was putting together a pretty solid season, a 176 ERA plus, 96 FIP minus, and a 3.70 SIERA. So bummer to lose him for a few months, but hopefully he could be back for the playoffs. Hopefully, if he is back for the playoffs, he'll be in a bullpen role, because that will mean that the 1, 2, 3, and 4 starters on our team are likely healthy, but good to kind of see what he could do at the major league level. We'll see who Byron Nichols thinks that he should put into the rotation for Vanasco. My hunch is it might be moving Hayden Wesneski back into the rotation, but we'll see who we bring up to replace Vanasco, and then see what the manager thinks of the pitching staff at that point. And it does look like Hayden Wesneski is going to slot back in as our number 5 starter, a role he has been in frequently for us in the past. While we're taking a look at the pitching, let's take a look at the pitching. Trevor Rogers, our number 1 starter, 7-3 record with a 3.13 ERA, off to a nice start. Zach Wheeler is 5-2 with a 3.31 ERA. Spencer Bauer, 5-4 with a 3.48 ERA. And then Caleb Lagerwell is 6-4 with a 2.84 ERA. So we are absolutely getting everything we could hope for out of the top 4 pitchers in our rotation at this point. Austin Roberts, our closer, also having a really nice year again. 45 strikeouts in 32 innings with 23 saves and a 1.97 ERA. Reed Galliman, back from an injury that derailed him towards the end of last year, pitching okay, 3.56 ERA, 36 strikeouts in 30 1/3 innings. Aaron Ashby had a little time on the IL earlier, but has been absolutely lights out with a 0.33 ERA in 27 1/3 innings. And last but not least, the youngster Tyler Bosma wanted to see what he could do at the major league level. part of the reason that we traded away Chris Bubich right at the end of spring training after Bubich refused an assignment to AAA. And Bosma has been respectable, 47 strikeouts and 46 and a third innings pitched, 4.86 ERA. So certainly hasn't been great, but he is holding his own at the major league level and hopefully will continue to improve as he gets more experience pitching against big league hitters. And an even more significant injury now for the Royals, Bobby Witt Jr. herniated disc in his back, out for 3 weeks. Not going to ruin his season, hopefully. Can see he's batting just .232 this year with 9 homers and 47 runs batted in. He does have 16 stolen bases and only 1 caught stealing. 101 OPS plus, 98 WRC plus. So not a typical Bobby Witt Jr. season here. He just turned 26 years old a couple days ago. Maybe the herniated disc has been impacting him a bit, and he'll be even better when he gets back. But it's June 16th now, so being out for 3 weeks, he'll probably be back first couple weeks of July. Not going to say it's a great thing, but hopefully, we get him healthy and get him back, and he can hit even better in the second half of the season than he has so far in the first 2.5 months of this 2026 season. And now here on June 20th, some very bad news for these Royals. Zach Wheeler, injury diagnosis pending, but I did get a pop-up that it is a very serious injury, so not optimistic that he will be part of the team for the rest of the year. Obviously only on a 1-year contract, but certainly will leave a hole in the rotation if his year is really over. Right now he's 6-2 with a 3.15 ERA and 80 innings pitched. Hopefully we'll find out in the next few days exactly what we are dealing with here with Mr. Wheeler, but it didn't sound like it was going to be good. And we've gotten to our mid-season review of our goals. Ownership only wanted us to have a winning record. We are 50-32, first place in the AL Central. So they are ecstatic with our progress. Get a final evaluation in the end of the season, and we are going to have a ton of contracts to figure out after this year. You can see that it will be 5 years since we took over as the general manager of the team, and we signed a lot of people to 5-year contracts when we totally rebuilt the coaching staff in both the majors and the minors. So we'll spend some time hopefully renewing a lot of the people that we want to keep around, but going to be a little bit of work ahead of us to figure that out. So we're going to wait and find out exactly what the injury situation is with Zach Wheeler over the next couple of days before we call it an official first half of the season and move on to the next episode. So the big exciting news is just going to be how badly hurt Zach Wheeler is. And it is as bad as it can get for Zach Wheeler. Torn UCL, and it appears to be a career-ending injury. That is all she wrote. Zach Wheeler announces his early retirement at 36 years old due to the torn UCL. He did exactly what we had hoped while he was pitching for us, 6-2 with a 3.15 ERA over 80 innings pitched, but he was fragile when we picked him up, and now his career is over. So not an optimal situation for the Royals, but he's helped the team get out to a good start on the season. We are up by 7 games on both the Guardians and the White Sox here in the AL Central, so hopefully well in control of the division, and we also have the best record in the American League, so hoping to not just win the division, but ultimately clinch home field advantage for the playoffs when we get to the end of the season in September. But clearly will be a little more difficult for us to get there now that Mr. Wheeler's career is over. And with the loss of Wheeler, our organizational depth will definitely be tested. Mackenzie Gore is going to slide in, at least for the near term, as our number 5 starter behind Rogers, Bauer, Lagerwell, and Wisniewski. Obviously, the hope is that we will get Vanasco back in September in time to hopefully get a few tune-up starts ahead of the playoffs and maybe be a bigger contributor for us in the playoffs than we had anticipated when we thought we were going to have 4 pitchers in front of him in the rotation. And we spent a lot of time talking about pitching, obviously, but before moving on, just going to check in on how the offensive players are doing so far this year. Nico Horner was banged up and missed some time, but having a great offensive season, hitting .351, hopefully on track to win his 5th consecutive Gold Glove at second base. Jung-Hoo Lee has done the way that we hoped he would hit. Now batting .318 over 195 at-bats, 16 doubles, not a lot of power, but a OPS of close to 800, which is good for a 120 OPS plus and a 121 WRC plus. If he is able to perform like that, believe that he will be a pretty solid signing for us. MJ Melendez coming back from that serious injury last year, 7 homers and 30 ribbies and 208 at-bats, hitting .269. Almost identical stats at this point to what he put up last season before the injury derailed his year. Sal Frelick, one of the trades we made when we traded away Juan Yepez, having a respectable year, .262, 9 homers, 35 driven in. Nicky Lopez, great defensive shortstop, hitting .262 for us. Stephen Paulini, a little bit of a more disappointing year than we would have hoped, batting just .239 with 5 homers and 39 driven in and 276 at-bats. Peyton Williams has been one of the big power bats on our team with 15 dingers in just 210 at-bats, although he is hitting only .238. Production is still good for a 120 OPS plus, so it's kind of interesting. You know, we got a 120 OPS plus from Peyton Williams, who's got 15 homers and 210 at-bats, but is hitting just .238. And as I talked about earlier, we've got a 120 OPS plus from Jung-Hoo Lee, who's hitting .318, but only 1 homer on the season and almost 200 at-bats. So you can get there in multiple ways. Kyle Lewis, starting center fielder, hitting .233 with 5 homers. He will have the opportunity to opt out of his contract at the end of this season. Part of the reason that we brought Jung-Hoo Lee on board, he's not a perfect defensive center fielder by any stretch of the imagination, but he can play respectably out there if we need to. So hopefully we'll have Lewis back, but if we don't, he has a little bit of an insurance policy. Zach DeCenzo, the youngster, 9 homers and 126 at-bats, but batting just .230. And then first baseman Nick Pratto, .223 batting average, lowest on the team, does have 11 homers and 251 at-bats, but has definitely not been exceptional production. 106 OPS plus and 105 WRC plus on the year for him. Looking at the overall statistics for KC midway through the season, leading the league in batting average and on-base percentage, leading the league in WAR, and generally in the top half of the league in most pitching categories, although we are 14th in home runs. First in steals, definitely being a little more aggressive on the base paths this year, and first in base running. And you can see the pitching is exceptional. We have been we are first in just about every category, second in BABIP, 9th in walks, but otherwise we lead the American League in every pitching category, second in defensive efficiency, and first in zone rating. So although our 51-32 record is the best in the American League, the Pythagorean record suggests we should be even better given the great batting and pitching that we've had so far. Should in theory be about 55-28, winning close to 2 out of every 3 games. So hopefully that means we'll play even better over the second half of the season. Clearly the losses of Vanasco as well as Wheeler, as well as Bobby Witt for another 1 to 2 weeks is not optimal for the Royals, but with the exception of Wheeler, should have Witt Jr. back by mid-July, and hopefully we'll have Vanasco back sometime in September, and hopefully they and the rest of the team can remain healthy and ready to contribute to hopefully a long postseason run. And with that, we are going to call it an episode. Obviously, the Zack Wheeler experiment didn't work out all that well. Paid him $16.5 million for 17 games started. So just a tad less than $1 million a start for Zack Wheeler before his career ended. But, the only positive is it was a 1-year contract, not going to have any long-term ramifications for us. And we do have money to potentially pick up some players in a trade as we get closer to the trade deadline. We've got about $8 million for free agents right now. So as we get closer to the end of July, we'll certainly be working the trade blotter and seeing who's on the trade block from other teams, because we'd like to add a little bit of talent. The other thing we are going to do, you can see we've been sold out most games this year. We're playing really well. So we are going to increase our ticket price by just $1 to $19 a ticket to hopefully generate a little more revenue, given that the Royals are having a really good season with a .614 winning percentage, and looks like we are well on our way to another record attendance, which we have consistently been setting over the last few years. So with that, thank you so much for watching. Hope that you have a great day, and we will be back in our next episode when we take a look at the month of July with the amateur draft, international free agents, and the trade deadline. Until then, take care.